The Mjolnir program promised invincible super soldiers wrapped in miracle technology, but every miracle has to start somewhere, and that somewhere was clunky, inefficient, and nicknamed after construction materials. So before we get to the armor that actually worked, let's talk about the one everyone wants to forget. Mark IV. The Mark IV was the foundation of every Spartan armor system that came after it, which is unfortunate because it had some serious problems. Introduced in 2525 as the first combat-ready Mjolnir variant, it had zero energy shielding whatsoever. You got shot, you took damage. End of story. The armor plating could take punishment, but Spartans were basically running around as heavily armored infantry with no force field protection. That's a problem when Covenant plasma weapons can melt through titanium like butter. The suit also guzzled power at a ridiculous rate. Extended missions meant constantly monitoring power levels like you were playing a survival horror game. But here's the thing, despite all its limitations, Mark IV proved the Mjolnir concept worked. Spartans wearing this armor changed the course of early war battles and became legends. The neural interface technology, the motion tracking systems, the strength enhancement, all of it started here. By 2551, most Spartans had upgraded to Mark V with its energy shields, but some units kept using Mark IV well into the war. At least it wasn't as problematic as what came next. Mark V. The Mark V was the first armor that actually worked the way it was supposed to. Before this, Spartans were impressive but struggling. After this, they started dominating. And the numbers prove it. Energy shield recharge rates improved significantly over the Mark IV. That alone would have been significant, but the Mark V delivered way more. It was the first Mjolnir variant to reliably support full combat AI personalities, which meant Spartans could finally use their suits the way they were always meant to. Add modular armor plating that allowed field customization, and you had a platform that could adapt mid-campaign. Production ramped up across UNSC facilities by 2551, and the suits maintained compatibility with earlier weapon systems, so deployment was seamless. Here's what matters though. The Mark V's introduction coincided with a measurable spike in Spartan mission success rates. Not a small bump, a spike. This wasn't incremental improvement. This was the armor that demonstrably changed the balance of the war. The community calls it the Goldilocks armor, not because it's boring, but because it hit the perfect middle ground. Powerful enough to matter, but not so advanced it feels disconnected from the war's grittier early years. It's the suit that proves Spartans could actually win. And if you think that was impressive, the Mark VI took everything the Mark V did right and turned it into the most iconic armor in gaming history. Mark VI. This is the most famous piece of armor in gaming history. Period. Mark VI became standard issue Mjolnir by October 2552, featuring significantly improved energy shields and advanced threat detection systems that could track multiple hostiles simultaneously. Production ramped up rapidly before the Covenant's final assault on Earth, with each unit equipped with sealed environmental systems for deep space operations and hostile atmospheres. Spartans could deploy anywhere, survive anything, and the armor could keep them alive through it. Master Chief wore a customized Mark VI. That suit, that exact silhouette, is burned into the memory of every person who played Halo 2 and Halo 3. The angular helmet, the bulky chest plate, the green paint job. That's what a Spartan looks like. Not looked like. Looks like. Even now, decades later, Mark VI is the armor people draw when they think Halo, and that creates a problem. Older fans revere Mark VI as the real Halo armor, the one that defined the franchise's aesthetic identity. Newer players see it as dated, a relic from a different era of design philosophy. This generational divide is one of the strongest armor-related debates in the Halo community. It's not about function or performance, it's about what a Spartan is supposed to be. Mark VI was standard issue, but because Chief wore it, it became legendary. But if you think letting go of that image is hard, wait until you see what replaced it. Mark VII. The Covenant War is over. Humanity survived. And now Spartans get the good stuff. Mark VII showed up in 2053 as humanity's first attempt at post-war armor redesign, but it got expensive fast. So expensive the UNSC shelved it in favor of Gen 2 Mjolnir. But Mark VII never went away. It kept evolving in the background, and by the time Gen 3 rolled around, it came back as one of the most advanced suits in the arsenal. Improved energy shielding, smarter AI coprocessor architecture supporting advanced tactical decision-making, enhanced modular visor systems, and communication arrays that earlier suits couldn't touch. Here's the thing, Mark VII wasn't built to help Spartans survive anymore. It was built to dominate. The The war was over, resources were flowing again, and humanity wasn't scrambling to jury-rig equipment from salvaged parts. This was post-war abundance translated into combat hardware, which brings us to the debate that still splits the fan base. Mark 7's sleeker design trades the bulky armored tank aesthetic of Mark 6 for something more futuristic, and fans cannot agree whether that's evolution or betrayal. One side argues it sacrifices the visual identity that made Spartans feel like walking fortresses. The other side points out it represents advanced material science and better engineering, but both sides miss the real point. The aesthetic shift reflects something deeper. Spartans during the war looked like they were built to take punishment because they were. Spartans after the war looked like precision instruments because humanity could finally afford to build them that way. At least Mark 7 still looks like military hardware, unlike Rakshasa, which decided armor should look like it wants to stab you. Rakshasa, the most aggressive looking armor in the Mjolnir catalog. And here's the thing, it wasn't designed that way by accident. Rakshasa was battle tested by Delta 6 teams during operations against Covenant core worlds, and every detail reflects lessons learned in the most brutal combat environments Spartans have ever faced. The sharp angles aren't decorative, they're optimized geometry from real combat data. The reinforced plating isn't cosmetic, it's positioned based on where incoming fire actually concentrated during engagement analysis. The asymmetrical design isn't a quirk, it's adaptation to how Spartans actually move and fight in the field. Introduced in Halo Infinite, Rakshasa represents a shift toward combat-tested brutalism, pointed edges, aggressive lines, visual intimidation. This isn't exploration gear. This is what happens when you design armor based on the worst fights Spartans have survived, which raises an uncomfortable question. Does armor need to look scary to be effective, or is intimidation just a side effect of battlefield optimization? Competitive players love Rakshasa. The aesthetic communicates exactly what it does, but lore purists argue it abandons Mjolnir's utilitarian philosophy, the idea that Spartan armor exists purely for function without theatricality. The debate boils down to whether modern armor should prioritize battlefield lessons or maintain design traditions from an earlier era. Here's where it gets interesting. Rakshasa exists because combat against Covenant remnants taught the UNSC that Spartans needed equipment optimized for fighting enemies who knew how Spartans operated. The armor isn't theoretical, it's a response to documented patterns where enemy forces specifically adapted tactics to counter Mjolnir vulnerabilities. But if you think armor built from brutal combat data is intense, wait until you see the suit designed specifically to make its wearer invisible. Mirage 2C. Invisibility, but optimized. Mirage 2C doesn't just use camo, it's built for it. Every other Mjolnir variant treats active camouflage like borrowed equipment. You find it, you activate it, you use it until it runs out. Mirage 2C designed its entire architecture around that philosophy. The armor platform integrates sensor disruption countermeasures into its base systems. Reduced mass distribution for faster sprint speeds during camo activation. Lightweight composite plating optimized for reconnaissance. Thermal output management systems that minimize heat bloom when cloaked, making thermal targeting harder for anyone trying to lock onto a single operator in hostile territory. This represents a fundamental shift in how specialized technology gets integrated into Spartan equipment. Active camo isn't just something you pick up anymore, it's something the armor helps you use better, and that makes people uncomfortable. The multiplayer meta debate is vicious. One side argues optimization-focused armor creates unfair synergies, erasing the level playing field that defined Halo gameplay for decades. The other side says this is natural tactical progression. Eventually, every specialization gets hardware support. That's how advancement works. Mirage 2C just got there first. Here's the thing, when camo stops being something anyone can grab equally and becomes something specific armor helps you maximize, it changes the identity of the loadout. It's not neutral anymore, it's strategic. And some players hate that, but if you think a suit that turns camo into a core tactical identity is controversial, wait until you see the armor that made players complete the most brutal achievements in Halo 3 history just to unlock it. Hayabusa. When Halo 3 introduced Hayabusa armor, the entire franchise changed overnight. This single cosmetic suit flipped everything the series stood for on its head. Hayabusa was technically a rival-powered assault system to Mjolnir, designed for heavy lifting and EVA operations, but nobody cared about the lore justification. What mattered was how it looked. Ornate plating with curved edges, ceremonial design that mimicked samurai aesthetics. It looked like a samurai stepped into a Spartan body, and players immediately wanted it. Here's the kicker. Unlocking Hayabusa requires required hunting down every single campaign skull, hidden collectibles scattered across missions that demanded exploration and skill to find. You earned it through dedicated effort, which turned it into an instant status symbol. Wearing Hayabusa meant you'd found every skull, mastered the campaign secrets, and deserved the flex. It looked incredible, and that was enough. And that decision proved something critical. Spartan armor didn't need to follow military doctrine to resonate with players. Function doesn't always beat form. Sometimes players want to express identity through their armor choices, not just optimize loadouts. Hayabusa became the template for every cosmetic armor variant that followed, from Reach's entire customization system to Infinite's endless coatings and cores. But it also started a debate that never ended. Does aesthetically driven armor design work against the Spartan utilitarian tradition, or does it represent personal expression within a militarized framework? Some fans argue Spartans are soldiers, not fashion models. Others say customization is how individual warriors claim identity in an organization designed to erase it. Either way, Hayabusa proved that cool factor matters as much as tactical realism. At least it still looked like armor, unlike the ODST-inspired variant that came next, Hell Jumper. When Spartans cosplay as ODSTs, and it's not disrespectful, it's a genuine question about identity. Hell Jumper armor is ODST equipment philosophy applied to Spartan platforms. Reinforced lower leg plating, ankle articulation optimized for high impact landings, integrated shock absorption systems specifically designed for orbital drop scenario. The helmet includes reinforced visor protection and integrated heads-up display optimized for atmospheric re-entry data. It's designed for orbital drops, which, you know, Spartans already do, but now they're doing it with equipment that explicitly acknowledges ODSTs knew something about falling from space. Here's where it gets interesting. Hell Jumper exists in a conceptual space between Spartan and ODST capabilities. It's a bridge. ODST fans celebrate this as validation that non-augmented soldiers who jumped into hell without shields or superhuman strength developed expertise worth incorporating into Spartan doctrine, which is genuinely cool. These were regular humans doing what Spartans do, just worse and with higher mortality rates, and now their equipment philosophy is influencing the super soldiers, but others argue it dilutes Spartan identity. If Spartans need ODST hybrid equipment, does that validate ODSTs or undermine Spartans? Does borrowing from ODST design language suggest Spartans were missing something? Or does it prove ODST innovations were genuinely superior for specific roles? The armor coloration matches ODST deployment aesthetics, dark grays and blacks, which either honors their legacy or admits Spartans needed their help. Helljumper is a love letter to soldiers who had zero advantages except courage and training. Whether that's respectful homage or uncomfortable admission depends entirely on how you feel about Spartan exceptionalism. At least it's not literally alien technology grafted onto human frames, unlike what's coming next. Helios Krill looks alien because it is. This armor doesn't borrow human design language at all. It was crafted by a Sangheli artisan armorer, and integrates combat aesthetics directly from Arbiter armor, the ceremonial warplate worn by elite commanders who've proven themselves worthy of leading entire fleets into battle. The angular plating, the sweeping curves, the aggressive silhouette. This isn't humanity's engineering team trying to look cool. This is a literal elite armor designer building equipment for Spartans, which means humanity is now commissioning combat gear from the same species they spent decades trying to exterminate. And here's the thing, Helios Krill represents a conceptual shift. Every standard issue MJOLNIR variant followed human military design doctrine, human manufacturing pipelines, human aesthetic priorities. Helios Krill is the first time a Spartan can deploy wearing armor designed by an enemy combatant from the species that glassed half of humanity's colonies. It's a visual statement that post-war Spartan doctrine includes trusting former enemies to build the equipment that keeps you alive in combat, which is either pragmatic alliance building or a really uncomfortable admission depending on how you look at it. Lore fans argue endlessly about whether this makes tactical sense or just looks cool. How exactly does humanity trust alien design principles for frontline combat systems after 3 decades of war? The game doesn't explain the politics, just shows you the result. But whether it's smart or reckless, the design philosophy is clear. Post-war humanity accepts that survival means collaboration with whoever builds it better, even if that civilization spent the last generation trying to kill you. But if you think commissioning armor from former enemies is wild, wait until you see the armor that straight up abandons Western military design entirely for traditional samurai aesthetics. Yoroi Samurai Spartans. Yoroi takes Japanese armor philosophy and proves it works in the 26th century. This isn't just cosmetic. The layered composite plating architecture mirrors traditional samurai construction construction, but every layer is modern material science. The articulation emphasizes flexibility and joint mobility over raw protection, prioritizing combat maneuverability. That design choice is intentional. That's a trade-off. The helmet design includes reinforced temple plating and a wide visor opening that optimizes peripheral vision. Color schemes typically feature deep reds, blacks, and gold accents. It looks like something pulled from feudal Japan and dropped into a war zone, and it works. Here's where it gets interesting. Yoroi demonstrates that post-war Spartan armor design has shifted from pure military pragmatism to cultural and aesthetic expression. For decades, Spartan armor followed one philosophy: function over form, efficiency over identity. Yoroi proves those aren't mutually exclusive. You can honor heritage and still be combat effective. Fans celebrate Yoroi as validation that the franchise can respect cultural design traditions without sacrificing performance. But the debate remains: is this cultural celebration or aesthetic indulgence? Should Spartan armor stay utilitarian, or should it embrace diversity? Either way, Yoroi holds its own in combat and looks incredible doing it, which raises the question: if traditional design philosophies from centuries ago still translate to modern warfare, what else have we been ignoring? But if you think blending cultures into combat systems is controversial, wait until you see the armor that combines every design philosophy into one terrifying package. Chimera. Chimera doesn't specialize, it adapts. And that single difference might redefine what armor means. This is the everything armor, where Rakshasa gives you aggression and Mirage 2C gives you infiltration. Chimera gives you both, and then it gives you everything else. The modular plating system allows field reconfiguration between mission types. Energy shields can be tuned for broader coverage or concentrated defense based on tactical needs. The integrated AI coprocessor runs advanced threat modeling that helps predict engagement patterns before they develop. It's designed for autonomous Spartan operations across multiple mission profiles, which is a fancy way of saying you can drop into any situation and reconfigure the loadout to fit. Here's what makes it significant. Chimera takes the multi-role concept further than previous platforms by making versatility the core design principle, rather than an afterthought. Earlier armor generations offered flexibility, but you still made trade-offs: speed or defense, stealth or aggression. Chimera's architecture minimizes those compromises through its modular framework. You're not locked into one configuration. The design philosophy evolved to support genuine adaptability without forcing you to sacrifice capability in one area to gain it in another. Now, competitive players have been debating this since day one. Is jack of all trades, master of none? Or is this the evolutionary endpoint where specialization becomes obsolete? Some argue specialized armor variants are tactically superior because you can min-max for the exact scenario you're entering. Others say Chimera eliminates equipment disadvantages through sheer adaptability. You don't have to guess what mission you're walking into. The armor adjusts. But if Chimera is the everything armor, Adamant is the armor that asks whether you're even necessary. Adamant represents the moment where armor stops being equipment and starts becoming its own soldier. Multi-layered shield systems adapt in real time to incoming threats. AI-integrated combat algorithms actively predict enemy movements and tactical patterns, and the armor's decision-making capability rivals the Spartan wearing it. At what point does technological advancement cross the line from enhancement to replacement? The armor incorporates synthesized compounds derived from Forerunner analysis, materials that theoretically shouldn't exist yet. Power requirements exceed anything previous platforms demanded, requiring infrastructure most facilities can't support. This isn't designed for mass deployment. It's designed for elite scenarios where one Spartan needs to function as an entire fire team. And here's the uncomfortable truth: when the AI can predict combat outcomes as reliably as the human pilot, when shield systems respond faster than conscious thought, when the armor itself makes tactical decisions in real time, you have to ask a question. Is the Spartan wearing the armor, or is the armor wearing the Spartan? The Halo community remains intensely divided on this. Some celebrate it as the natural evolution of human-AI partnership, the synthesis chief and Cortana represented made literal in hardware. Others see it as the erosion of everything that made Spartans human, the final step toward technological dependence that replaces individual agency with algorithmic efficiency. Adamant forces a conversation the franchise has avoided for years: enhancement versus replacement, partnership versus subsumption. At what point does helping a soldier become controlling them? And when combat systems approach human-level decision-making, what does being a Spartan even mean anymore? Nobody has an answer yet, but Adamant makes the question impossible to ignore. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.